let's talk about hot-button topic that's been stirring up more debate than pineapple on pizza: cultural appropriation. The idea of cultural appropriation is absolute nonsense. Yes, you heard that right. Stay with me, because by the end of this talk, you might just see why sharing and borrowing across cultures is not only inevitable, it's one of humanity's greatest strengths. First, let's clear the air. What do people usually mean by cultural appropriation? It's when someone from one culture adopts elements, like dress, music, or language, from another, often marginalized culture. Critics argue this is exploitative, that it strips meaning, commodifies tradition, and perpetuates power imbalances. But here's the kicker. Isn't that exactly what learning and innovation are built on? When we learn a new word from another language, adopt a scientific breakthrough invented elsewhere, or savor spices introduced by ancient travelers, aren't we doing the same thing? We're sharing, borrowing, and blending. That's called progress. To frame this argument eloquently, let me share a quote from psychologist and public intellectual Jordan Peterson. The idea of cultural appropriation is absolute nonsense, so that's that. There's no difference between cultural appropriation and learning from one another. They're the same thing. Peterson nails it. Borrowing from another culture is a form of learning and respect, not theft. History is chock full of cultural cross-pollination. The Silk Road. Traders carrying silk, spices, paper, and ideas from China to Rome created a network where Buddhism spread into Central Asia, paper-making traveled west, and Roman glassware appeared in Chinese tombs. The Renaissance. European artists borrowed mathematical principles from Islamic scholars to paint perspective, while Italian merchants imported Arabic numerals, our everyday 1, 2, 3s. Music fusion. Jazz emerged when African rhythms blended with European brass bands in the US blues, and rock and roll later evolved by mixing African American and white American traditions. If cultural boundaries were walls, civilization would have stagnated centuries ago. But let's understand the difference between respectful borrowing and exploitation. I'm not saying everything goes. There's a distinction between respectful borrowing and exploitation. Respectful borrowing, studying a culture's language, history, and context before adopting its elements. Example: a chef who spends months apprenticing in Tokyo before opening a sushi restaurant in Paris. Exploitation: mindlessly slapping a sacred symbol on a t-shirt for profit without understanding its meaning. Example: selling spiritual dreamcatcher tattoos in far-off lands without honoring their Ojibwe origins. But here's the twist. Exploitation is bad because it's disrespectful and profit-driven, not because any cross-cultural exchange inherently steals culture. Fix the disrespectful part, and the rest falls into place. Let's talk about the upside. Shared culture. Fosters empathy. When I learn your folk songs, I feel closer to your ancestors. Inspires innovation. Silicon Valley's gadgets borrow from Japanese minimalism, German engineering, and Indian software, and vice versa. Builds peace. Shared art and cuisine create common ground at a time when political ideologies divide us. In a globalized world, isolationist attitudes breed ignorance. Exchange breeds understanding. Now, let's see what are the common objections. Objection 1. It erases minority cultures. Speaker. Reality check. Cultures evolve. They've always borrowed. The idea of a pure culture is a myth. Languages mix. English alone has words from Latin, Norse, Arabic, and dozens more. Embrace change or get left behind. Objection 2. Only the dominant culture can appropriate. Power dynamics matter, but let's not let complexity paralyze us. If we collaboratively honor each element we adopt, credit the origin, understand the context, we create partnerships, not parasitism. Objection 3. It commodifies sacred traditions. Commodification is a problem, yes, but the solution is regulation and ethical standards, not a blanket ban on cultural exchange. Think UNESCO heritage lists or fair trade certifications. Practical guidelines for respectful cultural engagement. Speaker, holding up 5 fingers. If you want to borrow from another culture without being a tone-deaf tourist, remember these 5 principles. Learn the history. Dive into books, documentaries, and first-hand accounts. Seek permission. When possible, ask elders, community leaders, or cultural custodians. Credit authentically. On menus, in music credits, in social media posts, acknowledge origins. Give back. Donate a percentage of profits to community projects. Sponsor cultural preservation initiatives. Stay humble. Approach with curiosity, not entitlement. Admit when you don't know. Follow these and you shift from appropriation to appreciation. Imagine a world where we treat culture like a shared library. You read my books, I read yours. I taste your cuisine, you taste mine. New genres of music, new technologies, new cuisines, endless possibilities. That's not theft, that's the human story. So, is cultural appropriation nonsense? Absolutely. When stripped of its alarmist packaging, the charge boils down to, don't learn from each other. And that, my friends, is absurd. As Jordan Peterson says, borrowing elements from another culture isn't immoral. It's a foundation for peace and creativity. Let's tear down the imaginary fences and build bridges instead.